Podcast Answer Man, episode number 246.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte of This Week in Tech, and you're listening, you're smart, to Cliff Ravenscraft. He is the Podcast Answer Man.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you have been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet recorded that first episode. There's something we can all do to take our show and our lives to the next level. That's right, my friends. Taking our lives to the next level. That is something that I want to kind of make the focus for this particular episode. That's right. Just for this episode, I am going to scrap the normal format for Podcast Answer Man. And today, I want to spend the entire episode talking about the Podcast Mastermind. The thing that I've been working on for months. You've kind of heard me hinting about it here and there. Today, I'm finally going to be able to share with you the details about the Podcast Mastermind. And of course, the key phrase is, are you ready? And trust me, not everybody listening to this is going to be ready for the Podcast Mastermind. It is a huge commitment. I have set the bar high. I have set the expectations high. The commitment level is high. And that is all very intentional on my part. You know, I could share with you the entire journey of how this all came about, but what I've decided to do is kind of just tell you what I've come up with. Now, before I do that, I want to let you know that the result of the Podcasting A to Z course that happened in 2011, many of you are quite aware of the fact that this was my big, gigantic, major breakthrough moment in my business. Especially in 2012. It really opened my eyes to a possibility of me helping so many more people on a much deeper level, but yet with less amount of time and less one-on-one calls for those individuals. And it also helped me achieve a greater sense of margin in my personal and professional life. And it's kind of nice to get to the point where I actually could possibly realize this dream of not working a 4-hour work week. Yeah, I have no interest in working one of Timothy Ferriss's 4-hour work weeks, but there is this dream that I have that one day I might be able to work a 40-hour work week. You know, those 5 8-hour days. Yeah, man, that would be sweet if I could pull that off. And maybe even a little bit of margin within those 40 hours would be that would be icing on the cake. And I actually am beginning to see that as a reality. And the ability to see that reality is the result of Podcasting A to Z in 2011. It was out of this world. The success of that program. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering, yes, 2012, I will be doing a minimum of 2 Podcasting A to Z courses. Those have not yet been committed to the calendar, and that is intentional because this Podcast Mastermind is the most important thing for me right now. Here's the thing. A lot of people are listening to Podcast Answer Man not just because of the technical stuff. A lot of people are hiring me for one-on-one coaching, not just for the consulting in the technical realm of things, but I'm finding a lot of people who have been following my journey as a guy who used to be an insurance agent and who started this podcast as a hobby, and then all of a sudden found a true voice inside behind a microphone, a true message, somebody who got very excited about understanding I found out what my purpose and mission in life is: to entertain, to educate, to encourage, and to inspire others, to take the things that I'm learning in my life and to help use that to make a positive difference in the lives of other people. People have seen the process from the very beginning stages of being doing this as a hobby into what I'm doing today, with what I've built in this business surrounding this. And so I'm finding more and more people who are not just interested in the answers to podcast technical questions, which I still love doing those. And like I said, I will do more podcasting A to Z sessions, but I feel like it's time for me to move into a whole different realm, for me to take my coaching to a whole new level, to take my brand to a whole new level. And in fact, to launch a brand new brand, a whole new project, a whole new organization known as the Podcast Mastermind. So here's the thing. I want to read to you an email that I got from Dean Soto from, I think it's the So Totally Business Savvy podcast. But anyway, Dean wrote to me and he says, "Hey, Cliff, long time no talk. Just wanted to thank you again for what you do. Whenever I need inspiration to keep going with the entrepreneurial thing, I listen to the podcast Answer Man and your other shows. Over the past few months, my virtual assistant and I launched a WordPress plugin," and he put paid in quotes, "and it was very successful and helped me make more than my average month with my web development side of business. You are one of the reasons I keep persevering and doing what I do. Thanks for everything. God bless." So I got that email from Dean the other day, and somebody else who had filled out one of the applications. He was one of the first charter members of the Podcast Mastermind. His name is Mark Mason over at masonworld.com. Mark actually emailed me and said a few things that was very similar to what Dean said. And he's like, "Wow, I think this Podcast Mastermind, I think this is going to be huge for you. I can kind of sense your vision and your passion and your mission for what you're going for here. And I think this is very awesome. And I think this is the obvious next direction for you." And so I actually said, "Hey, check out what this other person wrote." And I actually sent him what Dean Soto wrote. And this is what Mark wrote back to me. He says, "Interesting. I completely agree with this guy. I thought about this many times. Your brand is a lot more than the topics you cover. You know that. But there is something about your shows. It's the encouraging content part." This guy is saying that he doesn't even listen to Podcast Answer Man for the podcasting content. He listens to Podcast Answer Man because it motivates him to do more, to be better, to have a better life. How amazing is that? That's the real magic. That's the true value in your brand. How to Podcast on Google gives 133 million results, but only one guy does it like you. That's how a lot of us feel. God bless you and your Heil PR40. So that, these are the kind of emails that I get. I get a lot of very encouraging, amazing emails of people who say, "Hey, I listened to this and you talked about your goals, or you talked about this, and I just want to let you know you inspired me to do this, and I succeeded because of this." And I'm a part of a mastermind group where, my life is radically transformed by being influenced by other people. And I've talked about masterminds just in passing, but I've never really given a pure definition of what a mastermind is. What I'm going to do for you is I am going to play for you some audio from a video from Napoleon Hill. The idea, the concept of the mastermind actually came from Napoleon Hill. He's the first one to introduce it in his book called Think and Grow Rich. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I want to play this audio. And of course, this comes from a time way back when, and so it may even sound a little funny to you. But listen to the words, not just the audio and the way that it sounds, but listen to the words, because this is some powerful stuff. Here you go.
This principle of success is called the mastermind principle. An understandable definition of the mastermind is this: it consists of two or more people who work in perfect harmony for the attainment of a definite purpose. Now, here are some interesting facts about the mastermind which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success. And I have heard well-informed Bible students say that the first known application of the mastermind was that which existed between the Nazarene and his 12 disciples. Of one fact, I am absolutely sure. When you form a true mastermind alliance with others and work with them in a spirit of perfect harmony, you can draw freely upon the spiritual forces within you in carrying out your plans and desires. I also know that the mastermind principle can give you absolute protection against failure, provided always that your purpose in using this principle is beneficial to all whom you influence. In my research while organizing the science of success, I had the collaboration of practically every outstanding successful man this country has produced during the past 50 years. And I can tell you definitely that their success was due in the main to their knowledge and application of the mastermind principle. I wish also to call your attention to the fact that our great American way of life and our unmatchable system of free enterprise have been built upon the mastermind principle. The greatest document ever conceived by the mind of man is a perfect example of the mastermind principle in action. It is the Declaration of Independence, and the best evidence of the importance of maintaining perfect harmony in a mastermind alliance may be found in the fact that the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence knew full well that it might turn out to be either a license of freedom for all mankind or a death warrant which would cause each of the signers to be hanged. And you may be surprised when I tell you that the great Ford industrial empire started with the formation of a mastermind alliance between Henry Ford and his wife. At the beginning of his career, Henry Ford was shy and lacking in self-confidence. It was Mrs. Ford who inspired Henry Ford with the faith and the courage to go ahead with the perfection of his horseless carriage. Although his relatives and neighbors generally tried to discourage him from wasting his time with the contraption, as they called it. Well, in my association with the late Henry Ford, I recognize that he had thousands of people working for him who had much more education than he, more magnetic personalities, more ability to make friends, and a much better chance of succeeding than Mr. Ford had when he was working for wages. But Mr. Ford had one simple quality the others who worked for him did not possess, which made him the greatest industrialist this nation has ever produced. Right now, I want you to do three things before our next visit. First, decide definitely where you wish to be and what you wish to be doing during the next 3 years. And second, decide how much money you desire to be making and what you are going to do to earn it. And third, form a mastermind alliance with at least one person in your immediate family and at least one other person among those to whom you are selling your services. By taking these three steps, you will have gone a long way toward appropriating the great master key to success. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Everything, including your personal success, has a price that must be paid. Now, before you begin to take the three steps I have suggested, there is one important fact I wish you to remember, and it is this. Control your mental attitude and make yourself friendly and agreeable with everyone with whom you are closely associated if you expect friendly cooperation in return. Indifference cannot create a mastermind alliance for you. A negative mental attitude can bring you nothing but failure. Remember always, you are where you are and what you are because of your mental attitude in which you relate yourself to other people. Remember also, your mental attitude is the one and the only thing over which you have complete control. Success is something which has to be planned, and success is something which has to be earned in advance. True, there is such a thing as luck, but just remember that luck is something you can create for yourself if you know the rules and follow them just as I give them to you. Remember, too, that success in the higher brackets of achievement is something that can be had only by taking others along with you. And the best definition of success, which I know, is this. Success is the knowledge with which to get whatever you want from life without violating the rights of others and by helping others to acquire it. And just remember that your only real limitation is the one you accept and set up in your own mind.
Well, there you go, my friends. Like I said, it may sound funny from that older style of speaking, but I will tell you these things are all truths and principles that I have experienced in my own life, and I can tell you from my own personal experience, everything that you just heard is true. So much so that I'm going to highlight a few key points. But before I do, let me tell you my vision behind the Podcast Mastermind. One of the things that I've done is I have helped hundreds of individuals launch successful podcasts through one-on-one consulting and coaching since all the way back to December of 2006. And one of the common threads that I've seen that have existed, I look at all the folks that I follow the most out of all the clients that I've helped launch their podcast. When I look at the ones that I follow the most, that I see have achieved the greatest amount of success in what they do, there are several things that are common threads, but one of them stands out, and it's that they understood their role as a leader, as a person of influence. And here's the thing. Leadership is not about a title that somebody gives you. It's not a position at the place you work. Going and getting a degree at an institution is not a requirement for becoming a leader. Leadership is actually more about what you have chosen to live in your life. Leadership is more about how you think. Leadership's more about how you act. It's the way you talk, the tone in your voice. Do you have confidence in what you're saying? Do you believe in what you are sharing? And leadership, honestly, is this place where you understand that you are in a position where you are influencing other people, and you don't take that responsibility lightly. And so when I think of podcasters, and one of the reasons why I love working with podcasters so much is because every single podcaster is influencing someone else. If you are a podcaster and you have a group of people, I don't care if it's 10 people, 100 people, or 10,000 people, or 200,000 people, it doesn't matter. If you have people who are consistently listening to your show, episode after episode after episode, you, my friends, are in a position of leadership. You are in a position where you are influencing other people. And what I've learned is not every podcaster understands that they are a leader. One book that I would recommend if you don't understand this principle is a book called Tribes by Seth Godin. It's an amazing book, and Seth is basically saying, hey, the world needs you to lead them. There is a niche audience out there of people who basically don't know what you've experienced in life in this particular area where you are most passionate, where you work the best, this place that is your sweet spot, that thing that maybe you've devoted 10,000 hours of your life to, or would be willing to spend 10,000 of your hours of your life devoted to it. There is a world of people out there that they desire for you to lead them. And what I love is when a podcaster can grow into this understanding that, hey, I am a leader. I want to tell you, if you go to podcastanswerman.com, I haven't said this out loud very often. I've thought about this several times in my mind. But if you go to podcastanswerman.com and up in the search bar up in the header, just type in Callie Lewis. Way back when I first started Podcast Answer Man, I did an interview with Callie Lewis, who used to do geekbrief.tv, and now it's geekbeat.tv, I believe. Anyway, but I remember Callie Lewis was one of those first people who actually decided to make a career out of podcasting. And when I brought her into Podcast Answer Man, I was just kind of getting started in this. And I remember just in that interview, and I've not listened to that interview. Maybe I listened to it one time after I had recorded the interview, but I've not listened to it since then. And I know that had to be back in 2006. So we're talking several years ago. Here's the situation. I remember in that episode saying something to the nature of, it's almost as though we were professionals. As to say that we're not professionals, we're amateurs. We're not the real deal in media. And I remember Callie is like, "Well, no, I am a professional." And I'm like, "Wow, you are a professional." And I remember thinking back then, I'm not. I still don't feel as a professional. You go back and listen to the episode 001 of Podcast Answer Man, and you'll hear me say, dude, let me tell you, I chose this name, Podcast Answer Man, but man, I don't have all the answers, and I'm just here to try to share what little I do know after 1 year of podcasting and stuff like that. And I never really took myself all that seriously. I just knew that I knew some things that other people didn't, but I really didn't take myself I didn't consider myself to be the leader that I already was at the time. The fact that I was influencing people. And over the years, I've come to understand that I am a leader. And over the years, I've come to learn to believe in myself, to take myself seriously, and to consider myself to be a professional. The thing is I honestly believe that all of this has to do with what happens to be my favorite verse from the Bible. And that verse actually is Psalms, and I've got it written down here, Proverbs 15:22. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. I'll read that one more time. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. I'll tell you a perfect example of this is the Podcast Mastermind. This idea, this plan for this organization that I'm creating, this, my friends, has gone through so much counsel. It's got so many counselors that I've gotten so much wisdom, so much advice from so many people that from what I initially had in my mind when I first thought about creating this thing, this, what I actually ended up with is so much bigger, so much grander, so much more important than anything I could have imagined when I first started it. But here's the thing. What is a mastermind group? Napoleon Hill defines it this way. He said that a mastermind group is a group that consists of two or more people who work in perfect harmony for the attainment of a definite purpose. So this is a group of people that got together who have this definite purpose that they've agreed to meet and to help one another to achieve this one definite goal, this definite purpose. And they're going to do this in harmony, and everybody's there for the benefit of everyone else. There are a couple other things that Napoleon Hill shared, and I want to go through them and kind of just comment on them. Number one, he says the mastermind principle is the principle in which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. I happen to be in a mastermind group with some pretty darn amazing people, and I will tell you that I have borrowed from the education of other people. I've got a friend of mine who does video, and he has, well over 10,000 hours in video. I've got a friend of mine that's in my mastermind group, and he does passive income, and he's got well over 10,000 hours worth of his life devoted to being successful with passive income. These are the kinds of people that I have surrounded myself with. And what you'll find is since I got involved, since I created this mastermind relationship with these individuals, you'll notice that my videos come to a whole new level. You'll notice that my passive income efforts have come to a whole new level, and every other area of my business and life has come to a whole new level. So yes, with the mastermind group, you do get to have the benefit of the experience and the outside perspective. Like, for example, I had an idea of, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And I just thought, man, this is the greatest idea. Everybody in my mastermind group is going to love this. And then all of a sudden, it's like I got a couple challenging pieces of feedback. It's like, dude, have you thought this through? What about this and this and this? And how are you going to keep people from having this expectation? And have you thought about how you're going to communicate that? Because if you don't, do you see that this could happen? And I'm like, whoa, you're totally right. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to dump this idea, and I'll make sure that if I do this, I'm going to have to communicate it this way. So that outside perspective from other individuals is sometimes just amazing. So basically, with the mastermind, you actually get to borrow the education, the experience, and the influence. And the influence is huge here too, especially for us podcasters, because guess what? Did I just say that podcasters are, well, not every podcaster is a leader because in their mind, they haven't set themselves up as a leader, but every podcaster is in a position of influence. And if you can imagine being in a mastermind with people who are influencing lots of people, just imagine the synergy that can get involved when cross-promoting other people's plans and purpose and just the goodwill towards benefiting people's lives in a positive way. This is huge. He says that the mastermind is the principle through which you can accomplish more in 1 year than you could accomplish in a lifetime had you tried to do things from your own resources. And let me tell you, I accomplished more in 2011 than I could have ever accomplished in a lifetime on my own. I don't know that I ever would have believed that it was possible that I could go from $150 an hour to $300 an hour without my mastermind group. I don't think I would have ever believed that I could pull off this thing called podcasting A to Z if it wasn't for the encouragement and the challenging things that people said in my mastermind group. I don't think that I could actually launch the Podcast Mastermind if it wasn't for the challenging thoughts and the encouragement and the inspiration of the folks that did this. Matter of fact, let me just tell you real quickly, the Podcasting A to Z course, I don't know if you guys know this, but that all got started. I was in a very bad place in December of 2010. And all you need to do is go back, listen to episode number 483 of Pursuing a Balanced Life at pursuingabalancedlife.com. It was called The Dark Days of December 2010. I was very sick at the time. It's major illness with just really terrible sinus infection, bronchitis, everything. Lots of business things were going wrong for me. I lost I was about ready to end a relationship with a podcast sponsor. It was my decision to do so, but I also lost my virtual assistant at the time. It was hitting me left and right, and then all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks of just being knocked out, I can't work. I started to lose self-confidence. I started to lose just the creativity. And I thought, man, what am I going to do? How am I going to make money in 2011? And I've got this cruise coming up with Dan Miller, and he's invited me to come speak. And it's kind of like this Valentine's cruise. I can't just show up by myself, but man, am I going to be able to afford to take my wife? And I just remember sharing these things with my mastermind and my board of advisors. And they're like, dude, you need to think this through. And I remember emailing Dan, is like, dude, would it be crazy if I came on my own? He's like, yeah, it'd actually be kind of crazy, Cliff. And I'm like, okay. Well, here's the thing. I actually remember Pat Flynn saying, hey, I'm going to do this niche site thing. I'm going to partner with somebody else, and we're going to have this class, and we're charging $800 a person, and we're going to allow 20 people in, and this is how we're going to do this, and stuff like that. And he shared this concept of what they were going to do. And as I sat there and I thought about that, I'm like, I wonder if I could do something like that for podcasting. And all of a sudden, my mastermind group says, well, you could do this, and then you could do this, and you could do that. Have you thought about adding this, this, and this? And then you could do this. And I'm like, wow, I could really do this. And so not only did I go on that cruise with Dan Miller, I took my entire family of 5. And by the time that it came time for my Podcasting A to Z course, which, by the way, almost everybody signed up while I was on my cruise, 2011 was the most successful year financially my business has ever had. And I have experienced more margin in my life than I had ever had. And that stuff would have never, ever crossed my mind had it not been for my mastermind group. So yes, you can accomplish more in 1 year than you could in a lifetime trying to rely entirely on your own efforts for success. The next thing he says is when you form a mastermind alliance with others and work with them in the spirit of harmony, you can draw freely upon the spiritual forces within you in carrying out your plans and desires. And I want to just tell you, it is amazing how much discernment of what I believe God's calling me to do in my life that I get through talking with other people who are genuinely looking out for my best interest. And that, everybody that's in my mastermind group, my personal mastermind group, is a believer. They're Christian. But I will tell you, I have a board of advisors as well. And I have, these people that I turn to with advice outside of my mastermind group. It's kind of like a mastermind group of its own. It's at least the mastermind principle anyway. And not every one of those are Christian. But the thing is through the wisdom and the advice and the feedback that I get, it really does help me draw upon what Napoleon Hill calls the spiritual forces within. I will say it helps me to discern, really honestly, is this who I am? Is this who I'm created to be? Is this what I should be involving myself in? Those kind of things come out with the mastermind principle. He also says the mastermind principle can give you an absolute protection against failure. Wow, is that, boy, I tell you, if there's any one statement that just seems like, ooh, that's too good to be true. But it says here, the mastermind principle can give you absolute protection against failure. Here's the thing, though. You cannot exclude the rest of that statement. It says, provided always that your purpose in using this principle is beneficial to all whom you influence. Okay, so when you go at things with the wrong motives, if this thing isn't going to be beneficial to everyone you influence, then chances are there is a good potential that it's going to fail. It may not. But if you want the absolute protection against failure, then only work on things by which you're using this principle of working together in harmony with other people for a definite purpose. Then make sure that what you're working on is not just beneficial for you, but it's beneficial for everyone. That this has value to add for everyone. And you can actually do that and uncover, is this something just for me? Because to be honest with you, that's been one of the questions. It's like, well, gosh, Cliff, have you thought about the size of this group? And is it just the income? Obviously, the income that you're looking for is a part of this group and its planning and its purpose for 2012. But we definitely can discern that it's not the main purpose, so we're good with that. But yeah, you definitely, it's good stuff. Let me just tell you. I just want to share some other things he says in here. He says, control your mental attitude and make yourself friendly and agreeable with everyone whom you're closely associated if you expect friendly cooperation in return. This is extremely important in a mastermind group. And I will tell you what, I've had some people who have said, I'll just tell you, one of the people in my mastermind group recently said, dude, what you just said, it smacks of arrogance. I love you, Cliff. I believe I know you to be better than that, but man, the way you just said what you said, it just sounds completely arrogant. And I'll tell you what, man, that just cut straight to my heart. But he shared that in a way that's like, wow, well, how did I say it? Because I don't think that I'm being arrogant. And so basically after that mastermind group call, I had a one-on-one conversation with him, and he shared with me what I thought, and I explained to him where I thought, what was going on in my mind. And through the conversation, he's like, well, dude, that's not what you said. And I'm like, well, tell me, what did I say? And he said, this is what you said. And I'm like, I said that? And he's like, that's what you said. And I'm like, wow, well, that's not how I meant to say it. And he's like, well, that's how you communicated it. And I think that that's an important thing for you to understand, that that's how you communicated that. I'm like, wow. Yeah. So I'm telling you, you always want to make yourself agreeable and friendly with the people that you want to have cooperation with and from. And the thing is that he shared with me a very difficult thing that he wanted to share with me instead of being quiet about it. But he did it in such a friendly and agreeable way. That's like, dude, I'm coming to you from love and respect here, but I got to just say that just what you just said just doesn't sound right. Anyway, another thing that Napoleon Hill says, he says, a negative mental attitude will bring you nothing but failure. And my friends, this right here, this is why the Podcast Mastermind group will not accept anybody with a glass half empty mentality. Negative mental attitudes, I've purposely made it somewhat difficult, if you will, to become a member of the Podcast Mastermind. I've set the bar high. I've set the commitment level high. It's a minimum of 1 year commitment, and it's the price is not insignificant. The thing is I only want people who are interested in saying, hey, I am ready. I am ready for the Podcast Mastermind. I am going to take my role as a leader seriously. I definitely want to grow personally. I want to grow professionally. I want to start being one of these people that has goals and shares them, who gets ideas and outside perspective from other people's experience and just other things. And I want to grow, and I want to achieve more in the next year than I would in a lifetime. And I'm ready. And I understand that I'm ready to invest. And a negative mental attitude is not something we're looking for. And you know what? I'll just share this. I won't give any details. But there happens to be a Facebook group that happens to have a lot of podcasters in it. And I've been invited to participate in this group a countless number of times. And I've not done that because I look at the group and I see a lot of negative mental attitude related to people's value. They don't take themselves seriously, and there's a lot of conversations that just I don't even want to read them, and I don't even want to kind of comb out the good stuff and kind of toss out the bad stuff. It's just too much negativity in there. Anyway, I was recently asked if I would be willing to post my video from my talk from Blog World LA, where I talked about, forget CPM. Here are proven strategies to make significant income from your podcasting efforts. And so based upon the request, I went ahead and did paste that video. I got struck down with so much negativity from one individual, and it was just like, well, I hate this. I can't even... I probably won't respond because it'll take me hours just to cool down. I hate this stuff. People who think you can be successful and blah, blah, blah. That's just baloney, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And you know what? I invested. And the thing is there's well over 100 other podcasters in this Facebook group. And I really wasn't as concerned about trying to convince this person that the things that I say are true and possible. But man, the thing is this person has, while this person doesn't believe it, this person has a lot of influence in this group. And a lot of people were, I can see where you're coming from. And I'm like, well, okay, let me share with you where I'm coming from. And through it, I consistently gave my thing. But you know what? It took up so much of my mental energy and so much of my heart to kind of just defend a positive mental attitude. And I feel like I gave my best, and I feel like I gave those who would be reading that conversational thread that, wow, I made a case for the positive mental attitude. I really made my case, and you know what? I'm going to let them go with it. And to be honest with you, I haven't been a part of that group since. Because you know what? Your mental attitude is the one and the only thing for which you do have complete control. You know what? Your health, you don't have control over that. Your financial situation, I don't care if you're a multi-trillionaire, it could all be gone tomorrow. The only thing that you have control over in your life is your mental attitude. And when you understand that a negative mental attitude can bring you nothing but failure, then you need to avoid it at all costs. And you know what? I tend to be one of those people that sometimes can, if I'm left alone for enough time and starting to, because I have fears, I have doubts, but when I actually start to let those kind of linger and I never actually express those to other people, like a mastermind group or my wife or a personal friend, a prayer partner, or whatever the case may be, if I don't ever let that stuff out and let people share with me another perspective other than the one that's going on internally, this self-defeating, self-sabotaging mindset, then all of a sudden I can actually find myself failing at everything that I do. And I will tell you, there are many times where there have been many times where right before a mastermind group call, I'm like, it's been a long weekend. Things haven't gone well. Man, I've got so much to do. I'm so way behind. You know what? I wonder if I should just cancel today's mastermind group. Man, I could really use this hour that I give up every week. I could really use this hour this week to just get these 10 emails answered. And you know what? I didn't cancel the call. And afterwards, my entire world had changed. Everything. Now, what changed? Did the circumstances change? No. Everything technically was the same. What changed was my mental attitude. And I had control over that. And one of the ways that I control my mental attitude is by surrounding myself with other success-minded, positive thinking, positive mental attitude kind of people. All right? Anyway, Napoleon Hill also said, success in the higher brackets of achievement is something that can be had only by taking others along with you. You look at anybody who's achieved massive, super massive success in life, not just financially, but just any success, you'll find that they all surround themselves with multiple people. And that's why one of the reasons why one of my goals for 2012 is to build a team of 5. You know, I not only do I want a mastermind, but by golly, I want to create another mastermind of people who are working with me in my business. You know, who are not just devoted to me once a week or twice a month, but man, I want a mastermind here in my business that's working, you know, every week, every day of the week to take things to a level we never achieved possible before. And so, I know my friend Stuart's smiling right now because he's like, dude, Cliff just got it. That light bulb just went off, didn't it? Yeah, it did. Anyway, he says the best definition of success is this. This is Napoleon Hill. Success is the knowledge with which to get whatever you want from life without violating the rights of others and by helping other people acquire success. That right there, that's the true key to success. I've seen it, I'm experiencing it, and I want to live it more and more on a daily basis. And of course, I have learned this one to be true. Your only real limitation is the one that you accept and set up in your own mind. So there you go. I'll tell you what, I'm going to play for you what Dan Miller has to say about mastermind groups. Dan Miller, 48 Days to the Work You Love, best book on the planet, one of my favorites anyway. 48days.com/listen is his podcast. If you're not subscribed to it, oh my goodness, subscribe to it. And here's what he said on last week's podcast.
Now, I told you I wanted to talk a little bit about why Ben Franklin was so successful. He would have had a birthday this week. January 17th was Big Ben's birthday. He would have been, 306 years old. So I never had the chance to sit down with Ben and talk to him. Would have loved to do that. Done that. Wouldn't that be a hoot? Sit down with Ben Franklin and talk to him. But I mean, here's a guy who saw opportunities that others did not see. And a lot of what I talk about on this radio show is exactly that. It's not about being smarter than the guy next door, you know, having better degrees or more certifications or licensure. No, it's about seeing things that other people don't see. Now, Ben invented for us the lightning rod, bifocals, the Franklin stove, the odometer, the glass harmonica. And yes, that is, I'm not leaving off an H. It is harmonica. It's a different instrument than the harmonica. You can check it out. He formed both the first public library and the first fire department in Pennsylvania. Now, we also, of course, attribute him to the invention of electricity. Now, obviously, that's kind of a stretch. He didn't invent electricity, but he certainly harnessed it and showed us how to produce more of it and showed us how we could use it. Can you imagine how much we take for granted today based on the conveniences that Ben Franklin made possible? But now here's what I want you to really hear. Here's the important part about who Ben Franklin was. When Ben Franklin was 21 years old, he personally selected the additional members of a small group. Had about 12 guys in this group, and he called it the Junta. Now that's Junto. And you can just go online and research that. You'll find lots of information about that group. All the members lived in Philadelphia, so they were all real close together. They could get together physically. They represented a pretty diverse spectrum of businesses, so they weren't all plumbers or carpenters or printers, as Ben Franklin was. No, they represented other businesses. And these were not just some elite white-collar group. These were just regular working guys who wanted to enrich their lives in every way possible. So they got together on Friday nights, first in a tavern. I mean, these were pretty informal, fun-loving meetings. These were not some serious, cerebral, silent kind of meetings. Now the guys got together and had fun. So they met in a tavern first, later in one of the guys' houses, but they discussed moral, political, business, scientific topics of the day. But here's really the point. Clearly, the Junta was Franklin's creation. He led the group by example. While he considered the other men to have similar intellectual interest, he recognized that the unifying force of this diverse group was, and I want you to hear this if you hear nothing else today. Here's the real key of that group. It was an inquiring spirit and a devotion to self-improvement. An inquiring spirit and devotion to self-improvement. Now, if you have those characteristics, you're going to stand out from the crowd pretty quickly. If you combine that with meeting with other people who also have those characteristics, an inquiring spirit, and devotion to self-improvement, you're going to exponentially leverage the things that you're able to do in your own life. Now, these are just, again, basic routine guys got together, but they shared, and they were all committed to having inquiring spirits and a devotion to self-improvement. Now, I encourage you to find such a group of people.
There you go. He encourages us to find such a group of people. And I want to tell you real quickly, a mastermind group is not something you have to pay to be a part of. The podcast mastermind is. I just want to let you know that had I not cut Dan Miller's clip right there, he actually went on to mention that he's actually going to be releasing a product. It's going to be how to create a successful mastermind. And of course, I can tell you right now, as soon as it's available, I'm buying it. But the thing is that Dan Miller, great guy, major success in his life. I follow him a lot. He and Dave Ramsey and my good friend David Foster and several other men, every single Wednesday morning, they get together. It's called the Eagles Club. It's their mastermind. You'll find that most successful people you know, either intentionally or without knowing it, are involved in the mastermind principle in their lives. So anyway, he said, here's the thing. So you could go out and create one on your own. And I just want to let you know that. But what I want to let you know is that I am organizing and creating an organization known as the Podcast Mastermind. This is actually going to be the most important thing that I focus on. There's no doubt in my mind that what's going to happen is the biggest things that I will see that I've invested in that will pay the greatest rewards in making positive change in people's lives around the world with the greatest numbers. It's going to happen through not only, it is going to happen through my own content. It is going to happen through Podcast Answer Man. It is going to happen through some the one-on-one consulting and coaching. It will happen through a couple podcasting A to Z courses. It will happen through Family from the Heart, the podcast that used to be called Life, Love, and the Movies that we're actually rebranding this week to the Successful Life Mindset podcast. I'm going to be putting my hands to some things that are going to have significant influence in a positive way in people's lives. But I am going to exponentially amplify that through the Podcast Mastermind, and so are the other people who come into the Podcast Mastermind organization. And I do see this, and I just want to be upfront about this. I see this being a very large organization ultimately. Within the first year, I'm thinking 100 people. All right. Now, here's the thing. What is a mastermind? It's a group of 2 or more people. And this was the biggest sticking point when I had this tension of the idea of the concept of the mastermind, which is really a smaller group of people, usually no more than about 10 or 12. Ben Franklin's was 12. There have been some successful masterminds that have more people, but they met more often and they did meetings in different ways. But the idea is that usually a mastermind group is small. And so when I started sharing, it's like, I'm going to create this mastermind organization. My mastermind group and all of my advisors all said, dude, what are you talking about? That's not a mastermind. That's a big, massive organization. That's an association of podcasters. And it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll go association of podcasters and not call it a mastermind. But as I started to do that, and I started to work out the details of what this, Podcasters for Positive Change association would be, I started to lose a little passion for it. It's like, wait, this isn't the mastermind is where I feel my heart is in. It's like that principle has to be a part of this. And so when I went back and I shared it, it's like, well, how can I do this? And so this is how it's going to happen. Let me explain to you the benefits and the description of the Podcast Mastermind. I'm reading this off of podcastanswerman.com/mastermind right now. The Podcast Mastermind is an exclusive group of podcasters who have committed to being a part of a smaller mastermind group of no more than 10 individuals. And I do know through my good friend Dan Miller that I need to actually mention that, hey, by the way, it's a large group of podcasters, an exclusive but large group of podcasters. The idea is that between now and the end of this year, the Podcast Mastermind could encompass 10 groups of no more than 10 people. The Podcast Mastermind is an exclusive but yet large group of podcasters who have committed to being a part of a smaller mastermind group of no more than 10 individuals. Within these smaller mastermind groups, each individual is invested in the personal and professional growth of every other member within the group. The greatest benefits of the Podcast Mastermind include the synergy created by the accountability that comes from working on your goals in collaboration with others, the ability to use the experience and knowledge of others in your mastermind group, and the invaluable feedback and support of other podcasters. So what does this mean to you? Dramatic improvement in both your personal and professional life. You will have more focus and greater confidence in yourself and your abilities. I am living that out, my friends. You will have more clarity about what to do next. Does that just not sound like a refreshing glass of water that you need in your life? To have more clarity about what you're going to do next? My friends, a mastermind group can help you uncover that. Amazing. You'll have the momentum and energy to sustain you through those rough spots. You know, when you kind of just like, man, I feel like I'm doing, and I just don't see any results. You can get that momentum and energy you need to sustain you through the Podcast Mastermind. You will experience less false starts and spend less time learning through trial and error. My friends, I could have made so many mistakes in launching this Podcast Mastermind had it not been for my mastermind group. All right. You will have a deeper understanding of how you are perceived by others. Remember, I told you, I was like, dude, Cliff, man, that came off as very arrogant. You should probably never say that again. You will sharpen your leadership and communication skills. All you need to do is go back to episode number 1 through episode number 10 of Podcast Answer Man and tell me if my communication skills aren't just a tad bit better today than they were back in those first 10 episodes. All right. You will be giving and receiving support in a warm and friendly environment, and you are going to achieve your goals faster than you ever thought possible. My friends, I am here today, 6 years into my business. I'm already beyond where I thought I would be in 10 years. And it's a result of my mastermind. Now, the thing is let me just tell you, the key benefit number 1 of the Podcast Mastermind is the smaller group that you'll be plugged into. You'll be plugged into a group of no more than 10 people. And I want to let you know that our meetings are 2 90-minute meetings per month that you are required to commit to before you become a member. But the thing is I do have this vision in my mind of this organization. And I do see it being a major organization, and I see it having a significant amount of weight behind what we're able to accomplish as an organization as the Podcast Mastermind. So anyway, benefit number 1 of the Podcast Mastermind is that you will be plugged in. You will be a part of a larger organization, but you will be plugged into a specific smaller group known as your mastermind, which will have no more than 10 individuals. And I'm going to tell you, the relationships that I see already in all the applications that I've received and approved and started to assign those group members to each other, wow, those people are going to be amazed. And I tell you what, I'm pumped. I am pumped. All right, key benefit number 2 of the mastermind is the Podcast Mastermind Success Seminars. There will be a minimum of 1 Podcast Mastermind Success Seminar every month. These are going to be led by handpicked experts at what their specific niche is. So I'm going to bring in somebody who's an expert in LinkedIn. I'm going to bring somebody who's an expert in Facebook fan pages. I'll bring somebody who's an expert in passive income. I'll bring somebody who's an expert in transitioning into your own business. I'll bring in a Dan Miller. I'll bring in all these amazing people as experts to talk about things. And so these are going to be Podcast Mastermind Success Seminars, and you'll get a minimum of 1 of those every month. But man, I tell you, those alone, I've been told, are worth the price of admission. Now, I don't want to highlight this too much, but I will mention it. The entire catalog of Podcast Answer Man digital training products. So if you go to podcastanswerman.com/products, every single product I've created is going to be included. You'll get that as a member. I'm just going to give that access to everybody who's a mastermind member. But here's the deal, though. If you're only signing up for that, don't even dream about it. Seriously, it's just something I'm offering as a benefit to those folks. But I'm just serious. I don't want anybody to sign up for this. If you want all of the Podcast Answer Man digital training products and don't want to do the mastermind, email me and I'll give you a special rate on all of the products and just keep the mastermind out of it, because I only want people who are so 100% certain that this podcast mastermind is the right thing for them. All right. So anyway, so benefit number 1, your own small mastermind. Number 2, the Podcast Mastermind Success Seminars. Key benefit number 3, the Podcast Mastermind online member portal. Now, here's the thing is there is going to be an exclusive member-only website. It's in the application. I'm going to read this to you. It says, the Podcast Answer Man online portal functions as a repository for an amazing list of ongoing resources that are meant to keep all members of the Podcast Mastermind up to speed with the latest information related to the personal and professional growth, tips and tools for productivity, and to stay on top of the latest technology trends related to creating online content and building our brand. These resources can be anything such as a web or mobile application, a WordPress plugin, an online service, a piece of specialized software, a book, etc. Do you agree to submit at least one resource per month? And so each month, every single member of the Podcast Mastermind, if there's 100 people, that'll be at least a minimum of 100 new resources. This could be like a WordPress plugin. I mean, just amazing stuff. I alone have a ton that I can't wait to put in there. And I'm going to go overboard. Instead of just putting a resource, I'll probably create like a video tutorial on how to use the resource or how I'm using the resource. So I'm going to go way overboard, and I know some other people will. But if nothing else, it's just an explanation of a great product or service that you found, and you're going to put in a description of what it is and a link to it, so that it's going to be a repository for that. And here's number 21 on the application, or at least it's currently 21. This application could change. While the Podcast Mastermind online portal will also host the access to all Podcast Mastermind Success seminars and any other digital training products that are made available, the primary function of the portal's discussion forums is to allow members to stay in touch with each other between their monthly scheduled meetings. The online portal will also host multiple sections where members will be able to participate in ongoing conversations related to various topics of interest. Participation in these online discussion areas is optional, but highly encouraged. And the question 21A is, do you think you will make regular use, meaning several times per month, of the online discussion forums of the online portal? Yes or no? Would you be willing to look for and help answer general questions posted by other members in the Podcast Mastermind? Yes or no? And then 22 is probably one of the most important things. And this is where one of my mastermind group members is like, how are you going to communicate this? And here it is. It is very important to note, especially for those of you who have gone through the Podcasting A to Z online training course, that I, Cliff Ravenscraft, am not committing to answering every question or participating in every conversation within the discussion forums. I hope that this is an area where I will underpromise and overdeliver. However, I wanted to make sure to clearly set the expectations in this area. Do you understand and accept this? So that was the biggest thing. It's like, man, I open up this forum and are people going to expect me to be there? Is this an online coaching class? Is this where you go to get every single answer to all your technical things related to podcasting answered? It's not the purpose of this group. Yes, those conversations will happen, but just know this is not a replacement for hiring me as your one-on-one consultant or coach or whatever the case may be. But certainly you'll find that one of the benefits is you'll be able to ask a question here, and chances are somebody's going to know that answer. It may be me answering it, but it may not be. And then key benefit number 4 is amazing promotion of your online efforts to others. Basically, over the years, I can't tell you how many people that I've connected with that, like a Dan Miller. As soon as I connected with him and we built this amazing relationship, he started to just talk about me freely in his podcast. He started to talk to me about to people like Michael Hyatt over at michaelhyatt.com. He is the chairman of Thomas Nelson Publishing. And lo and behold, guess who I'm working with, these days on some things, and other people like that. And ever since I met Dan Miller and we developed this relationship, the amount of promotion that's happened to me and my brand personally and professionally has been through the roof. It's been exponential. And that is the kind of stuff that will happen. Just imagine you're in a group with other podcasters and you're there for the personal success, making sure that you contribute to the success of other individuals, the reciprocity that's going to happen between these people. It's just going to be amazing. It's just going to be amazing. And so I'll tell you what, the question is, are you ready for the Podcast Mastermind. And if you go to podcastanswerman.com/mastermind, you can read all of this stuff. There's even a section down at the bottom. This is an exclusive organization. These are the qualities of the people that we're looking for. If you do not have these qualities, don't even bother asking for the application. Seriously. The thing that you'll find here is that I am not trying to sell you on this. I am telling you that if you are ready for the Podcast Mastermind, it's available and it's going to be awesome. Well, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Podcast Answer Man. And I want to let you know that this podcast episode was originally recorded on January 26, 2012. And I'm just now recording a brand new ending, what you're hearing right now, on Friday, May 4th, 2012. And the reason why is because the Podcast Mastermind has now been in existence for more than 3 months, and things are going extremely well. Everything that I told you about in this podcast episode about the Podcast Mastermind, we are doing amazing things. When I launched the Podcast Mastermind for the very first time, we brought on 42 charter members. And wow, it's awesome. And the cool thing is that we're open up now for new members to come in. If you're interested, I do want to let you know it is a big commitment. The bar is set high and we do not accept everyone. In fact, when I opened it up for charter membership, I had well over 60 applications and only approved 42 of them. Now, if you do want in, it is $297 a month, which is actually less than 1 hour of one-on-one coaching and consulting with me. Or if you wanted to, you could pay $3,267 for an annual membership, and that is essentially 1 month free. And I will tell you, this is a minimum of 1 year commitment. You are committing, if you submit an application, you are saying, if I'm accepted, I am committing that I will be a part of this for a minimum of 1 year. Also, you'd be making a commitment to attending the meetings that happen twice a month. And of course, we expect every member to have some things that will come up over the course of their personal and professional lives that might keep them from attending a meeting every now and then. But the goal is to have you attend a minimum of 80% of our meetings that happen twice a month. Again, the bar is set high. We only want super serious, extremely positive thinking people who are ready to take their lives, both personally and professionally, to the next level. If you want to submit an application for the Podcast Mastermind, number one, please go to podcastmastermind.com and make sure that you read through all of the text that is on that page. And at the very bottom of podcastmastermind.com, you will find an application in PDF form that you can download and complete and submit to me at cliff@podcastanswerman.com. If your application is accepted, we will set up a 30-minute interview to discuss things further, and then I would be able to let you know whether or not you would be accepted as a new member of the Podcast Mastermind. But I am telling you, my friends, things are going great. If you want, head over to podcastmastermind.com, scroll to the very bottom of the page, and look at the comments section. You'll see what some of our current members are already saying about the Podcast Mastermind. Until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.